Welcome everyone to the showdown between the Skaven, who shall be led by Deathmaster Snitch in his freakishly baritone voice. And today, guys, we face off against the Vampire Coast, who shall be led by Luther Harkin, aka Pippi Longstockings with this haircut over here. But nonetheless, guys, it is going to be Skaven against Vampire Coast. And let's go ahead and break down the build. So as far as the build goes, it's pretty dynamic. Up here in the front, we do have a couple of groups of the Gutter Runners, which are pretty good against Vampire Coast. They can go after deck droppers, pretty good DPS against like Mourngulls and some of the lightly armored bigger targets like that. Against like things like Luther Harkin, they can kite, they can apply poison, but oh man, I just noticed this. I was wondering, damn it, I've been doing this in my last couple of replays. I actually forgot to bring the poison variant, so I just brought standard Gutter Runners. Okay, that explains a lot because they were actually being chased by something in this game, and you guys will see, it'll come up. But nonetheless, they still have good DPS against large targets, and if something is chasing them, standard Gutter Runners still do, of course, have the snare nets, which is certainly not going to be a bad choice even without the poison. Up here in the front line, it's going to be a bunch of Skaven slaves, standard Skaven army stuff. Going to be taking a beating for the Horned Rat, and Skaven slaves actually hold up for a surprisingly long time against zombie pirate deckhand mobs. Obviously, these zombies aren't known for their combat prowess. So yeah, pretty good in front line. You don't really need too much else in my opinion. It's oftentimes better just to use cheap Skaven stuff and then buffer with summons and things like that. In the secondary line, we have a couple of groups of these Skaven slave slingers, and these guys are great against Mourngulls, and even with volume of fire, if they're just throwing their haggard pebbles up at a giant crab or something, even the big heavily armored crabs, it can do some okay damage. I mean, for the cost, Skaven Slaves Slingers, not a bad unit. Now, we do have a couple new units as well. We have the Eshin Triads here, and on the far side, we have the Ixchas Triads. So for anyone who plays Skaven and really likes to play gun lines or mortar lines, take note of this. It's really, really effective. So basically what you do is you use the Ixchas Triads, you summon their clone, and you use it as a tar pit to advancing armies. So basically you throw this guy up and throw it in the middle of these advancing units, and it's really going to buy you a lot more time in the advance. So in the back, we do have the Ixchas Triads, like I said, Eshin Triads, and defending the gun line, we have two groups of Rat Ogres, the Natty Boo Sharpshooters, one group of Death Runners in the back, which I like to use to kind of defend, and they actually, can tear apart Hounds pretty quick. They can tear apart Depth Guard. Depth Guard would probably win in a straight up fight, but they put some serious hurt on those guys for sure, and they're quick. I actually like having one of these guys as like a kind of like a sweeper in football or soccer here in America, whatever you guys want to call it. Two groups of the Poison Wind Mortars. So these are kind of my countermeasure against gunline. So if Vampire Coast does go gunline or a defensive cannon build, Poison Wind Mortars are just such a good counter against them because cannons aren't terribly effective at shooting them, and they're just really, really good. So for our caster here, we do have a Plague Priest who's going to be summoning some rats to help out in the front line. And in the back, we have Deathmaster Snitch. And I actually like him quite a bit. I know Skrulk is the more kind of a conventional pick because of how good Lieber is, but I really do like Deathmaster in this matchup. He does have a really, really good snare, can lock things in place, and yeah, he's just, he likes to get in there and shank things, which is always fun. So for the forces of Arrow, in the front line, he's going to have Zombie Pirate Deckhand Mobs, Mourngulls in the secondary line, some Scurvy Dogs in the back, Vampire Fleet Captain here, who's going to be summoning and dropping some sweet, sweet invocations. And up in the sky, he does also have Luther Harkin as well. A great choice. He's slippery. He can snipe Skaven Lords very effectively. Luther is a terror in the night. I think that, a lot of people argue that Noctilus is the more competitive choice, but I think that's kind of a, of the days of old. I think that nowadays Luther Harkin is just such a monster. He's so tough to deal with. Even if he doesn't have to land, let's say there's like halberds on the ground defending something, he can fly over, he can shoot with his blunderbuss. It's really, really powerful. Up here in the forest, it looks like there's going to be a sneaky vanguard. It's going to be a Mourngull Haunter coming in. This bad boy does cause terror and certainly can do some serious work against these Skaven battle lines. And I think there are also some Scurvy Doggos lurking in the tree line. So on that note, guys, let's get this show on the road and have some fun and see if the Skaven can hold off the Vampire Coast rush. So this is basically what I was telling you guys about. Here in the front, I use the Ixchas Triads, and they are unbreakable, I think. So these guys are going to be holding here, holding back the Mourngulls, obviously not doing any damage since they're clones, but it's really, really useful. It's halting the advance, it's buying time for my gun line and my front line, and at the end of the day, I'm quite happy with it. In the meantime, mortars are dropping here into the deckhand mobs, doing some really good damage so far. So the mortar is certainly paying their dues, but now the Vampire Coast pressure is going to be coming in pretty hard, as the Scurvy Dogs and Luther Harkin are going to be collapsing up here on the northern flank, so I do pull in my reserves. The Skaven Slaves and some Ogres are going to be going in, and look at these Skaven Slaves, not breaking yet. Well, that's probably going to do it right there, that charge, but nonetheless, I'm quite proud of these little rat boys. So finally, my summon of the Ixchas Triads has broken off, but it bought me some time. You can see the engagement has happened over here, but it hasn't happened on the other side quite yet. And now the Mourngulls are going to be surging in here on the far side as the Skaven Slave Slingers continue to kind of pepper in on those guys. And of course, up here, the Poison Wind Mortars are continuing to go after the deckhand mobs and doing some really, really good anti-chaff clearing there. Now, as far as the Vampire Coast rush goes, it is quite scary. In the front line, the Slingers actually are able to bring down a group of Mourngulls pretty effectively with the support of a Plague Priest. Plague Monk's a little bit lazy there on the engagement. I guess I forgot to give them the proper attack order. I thought they were on top of something, so certainly my fault there, but Some Scurvy Doggos are surging into my back line. You can see they're going after the mortar teams, which is fine. I believe the mortar teams do have 70 armor, so they don't die immediately. So I do pull the Ixa's Triads, which I had in reserve, and the Death Runners are being very, very conservative back here, doing their best to guard the Natty Bubo Sharpshooters. Now over here on the flank, you can see some of the Scurvy Doggos were able to chase off my Skaven Slave Slingers. Gutter Runners continuing to kite back, doing some really nice poke here against the Morghuls, as the Summoned Plague Monks are really helping out as well in this fight. And even though Morghuls are a large target, Plague Monks do have decent DPS in general and can actually wear those guys down. So Mortar's still raining some hot fire in, although in some positions I have been compromised, and here I did miss it. So Deathmaster Snitch was able to use his sigil, lock down the Morgul Haunter, and just gave him the business. I mean, Deathmaster took that guy apart, which is one of the reasons I like him. He's just a powerful duelist character. And if you can really get the isolation and the jump on something that's already kind of distracted in combat, man, he can do some really good work. So we do get a nice little shank on Luther, who is going to be forced back by the Deathmaster as well as these Eshin Triads, but I don't want to overchase too much. Luther would easily win in a duel if they just went straight up fisticuffs, so I have to be really careful and choose my engagements wisely. Over here, Mortar's continuing to shoot into the blob. The Poison Wind effect, I'm curious about how effective it is against the Morghuls. It seems to be doing okay. The Ixa's Triads here are going to be surging into the front line, attacking the Morghuls as well with their anti-large. I do not believe this is a clone, though. This is actually one of the clone units right here, so I release the clones. So the clone's going to be going into the front line to occupy those guys, while the Ixa's Triads here in the back are going to be helping support, trying to keep that gun line alive. And they have been doing a pretty good job peeling. We've been able to fend off the Scurvy Doggos for the most part. Natty Bubo Sharpshooters are still shooting, but eventually Arrow just has so much pressure, they're going to be surging in from all angles to really put a lot of hurt on my guys. Now, as far as the bounce of power goes, it is a little bit favored here for my Skaven. The Death Runner is making very, very quick work, I believe, of a zombie pirate deckhand mob over here, and now are engaged in mortal combat against some Scurvy Doggos, but with their bonus versus infantry, and Scurvy Dogs are infantry sized, hopefully they will be able to win that fight. So if we take a big old overlooking arc here at the battlefield, you can see some Morghuls in the back. Have been able to kind of clean up my front line for the most part, and my Plague Priest has been losing in combat here against the Vampire Fleet Captain. Vampire Fleet Captains are much better in terms of combat prowess, but again, the Plague Priest isn't a slouch, but it's not a good duel for him. So we do summon some more Plague Monks before I potentially lose this caster, and the Plague Monks are able to help finish off some Morghuls here. These other Morghuls, of course, in combat are struggling as well, but this is a pretty big comeback here for the Vampire Coast. Deathmaster was trying to kind of get some attacks here on some Morghuls, but Luther Harkin, of course, with his gooning abilities, was able to come in and get some serious pressure on me, but we do have some supporting Overwatch fire. As you can see, these Natty Bubo Sharpshooters getting some really good shots here, and now Deathmaster is going to be popping his concealment bombs and running like a sneaky rat into the tree lines, invisible to the eye of Luther Harkin here. So got to be a little bit careful to make sure I don't get caught once again. Death Runners here, like I said, with their bonus versus infantry, very good against the Scurvy Doggos. And in the distance, what do we have coming back? We have some Skaven Slaves, we have some Eshin Triads. Poison Wind Mortars are back online with some decent ammo, but really there's not too many good targets for them here. Morghuls are actually crumbling across the board, and I do have the Ixa's Triads here, as well as the Death Runners attacking Luther, and some of the Gutter Runners, but unfortunately I didn't bring the Poison variant, but it would have been pretty nice here. Mortars actually do have one decent target back here, so there are some deckhand mobs who are a little bit late to the party, and now these guys are going to be bombarded here by the Poison Wind Mortars. And again, really, really good at taking apart the zombies. You guys probably saw how quickly the Poison Wind Mortars were able to take apart the zombos here in this game. Quite happy with those guys. So the last of these Morghuls here are going to be kind of crumbling down. My Plague Priest is going to be scurrying away from the mighty Vampire Fleet Captain here. And now I believe we have Deathmaster coming out of the forest. Concealment Bombs is still active, really long duration on that. We're going to be coming in and trying to assassinate this Vampire Fleet Captain, staying away from Luther, who of course is a little bit trapped up in combat here by the Triads. And Luther's actually taking a lot of damage, guys. This battle is really, really close. In the meantime, Natty Bubo Sharpshooters are going to be falling back, and they will be turning their sniper rifle sights here onto Luther Harkin, hopefully able to do some decent damage. Deathmaster are going to be running away. Morghuls, of course, have a bonus for his infantry, and I do not want any of this. And also, I did see Luther Harkin coming in, so I just noped out of that one. I used the Deathmaster Sigil, but unfortunately, Luther gets back up into the sky, which is such a disaster here. And you can see the Eshin Triads going to be surging in with their anti-large, hopefully able to take out these Morghuls. Morghuls going down very quickly. And yeah, the snare for Deathmaster is very, very short, so Luther is able to move very quickly, and he does rapidly jump over onto the Sharpshooters, which is a very good call, because they were potentially going to be laying some serious hurt on him. So finally, a bit of a reprieve here from Deathmaster. He's able to get in there and do some nice shanks here onto these Morghuls, who I believe only have a couple models left. In the back, the Vampire Fleet Captain is hunting down my mortars, which is a little bit unfortunate. So we grab Deathmaster, we get away from Luther Harkin, who is a little bit kind of inundated and distracted over here by some ogres. And now we're going to be going for the 2-for-1 shank. So we get in there, and you can see the Vampire Fleet Captain is going to be taking huge damage. Man, Deathmaster hits so damn hard against these injured targets. and we might be able to get this character. Granted, Luther is here now, and it is a huge mismatch. So in the true Skaven fashion, Deathmaster is going to be abandoning the Plague Priest, running away to save his own hide, and hopefully it'll work out for him. So the Death Runners over here are able to finish off the Morgulls. It looks like those guys are down for the count. Some of the Gutter Runners are going to be coming in as well. And basically, I'm just doing ring around the rosy, just running with Deathmaster, trying to get away from Luther because he is an absolute beast. So Morgulls are engaged here. They have 17 HP, 10 HP, 12 HP, and they have crumbled. So the Natty Bubo Sharpshooters have 9 of 24 models, some decent firing power left here in the late game. Those guys could turn and shoot. Now the bounce power is pretty heavily favored for the Vampire Coast here. They do have the summons online, but once the summons are gone, in accordance with the rules that we play under here, he's going to have to stay in combat. So for example, Luther wouldn't be able to cycle charge and things like that, so it is going to provide me with some nice opportunities. Now Luther lands here, and we get the Deathmaster Sigil, and he has 3100 HP, Rat Ogres, Eshin Triads coming in, Deathmaster coming in himself, and man, 800 HP, 1000 HP, 1100 HP immediately off Luther Harkin here as he's taking a beating, and guys, we're pulling the game back here. Are the Skaven going to be able to get this? Potentially, if we are able to goon Luther Harkin, maybe so. So Deathmaster is taunted here, and oh man, he gets nibbled on by Luther Harkin. A big old Terror Guy's bite right there. Able to put Deathmaster in the danger zone. Mortar's going to be coming into combat as well. Looks like these guys have a little bit of mass. So they're going to be coming into combat, basically throwing all the spaghetti here at the wall. Trying my best to just get back in this, but Luther Harkin took a lot of damage from that big old Alpha Strike, but he was able to survive. Now in the distance, we do have some Natty Bubo Sharpshooters, and Balance of Power is still in the range of possibility. We're pretty close, and I'm pretty sure that the Vampire Coast is out of summons. They're out of touch, they're out of time, and yeah, for anyone who's wondering, that's a Hollow Notes reference. But the Vampire Fleet Captain here is trapped in combat versus some Rats. Plague Priest is going to be coming in as well, and Luther Harkin is in combat with Clan Rats. Now that he only has single entities left, he's also not allowed to pull out of combat. So Luther Harkin can't cycle charge, he basically has to stay in combat and fight. My apologies for the phone there. Things are getting a little bit hog wild over here. But nonetheless, the Natty Bubo Sharpshooters are going to be shooting downtown against Luther Harkin, and he's taking some work, guys. Now, Luther does have the hunger, of course, being a vampire and all that good stuff. So he is going to be able to heal while he takes these poking shots. You can see some Ogres coming back in, and the Ixchis Triads coming in once again, as well as the Plague Priest. So we might actually be able to finish off this Vampire Fleet Captain here. But the Plague Priest, I think, has a slightly more ambitious sights, as he is going to be jumping on over to Luther, perhaps, maybe hiding in the tree line. I'm not quite sure what was going on there or what I was thinking, but there was definitely a lot going on here. I was like, oh god, finish him, finish him. Sharpshooters up in the sky, going to be going after Luther. 643, he is very, very low in HP, but I think this Predator in the night is going to be going after the Plague Priest, and the Plague Priest is going to be scurrying for his Rat Life, but he gets instantly gooned, tons of damage, he gets terror routed, and that is going to be the game. What a close match. I mean, it was down to the wire there. Luther was at like 10%, and had we been able to pop Luther, maybe we would have gotten the Vampire Fleet Captain as well. But man, what a great game. I think both builds are very strong. I felt very confident with this build. I think the only thing I would change is putting poison on the Gutter Runners to be a little bit more effective at kiting, and just get rid of like a Skaven Slave or something to compensate for that. But the build is pretty good, and I don't know if it's better than like a Skrulk build or a Screaming Bell build, but I really like Deathmaster this game. He annihilated the Morgul Haunter. He did a lot of damage against Luther. He was slippery, and yeah, I really like him quite a bit. I almost prefer him to Skrulk here. Skrulk is kind of like putting all your marbles in one basket, and against a character like Luther, that's a little bit risky. But I mean, again, Libra is so good though, so it's a tough argument in this matchup at least. But yeah, I like this build a lot. I think it's pretty strong. Again, I would just change the poison, maybe cut one Slinger, get another Skaven Slave Spear or something, and it was good. It was a close game. Really, a couple tight moments could have really determined the outcome of that game, and I felt like the builds were pretty evenly matched. So very, very happy about that. And yeah, Arrow's build is great. It's unconventional. I mean, I don't know if it's unconventional in the tournament sense, but it's a rush build, obviously. So I was kind of playing a little bit around a gun line with my mortars. But nonetheless, the mortars still did good. They cleared out a lot of chaff and kind of probably paid for themselves at the end of the day. But yeah, his build was really good. His micro was good. His targeting was good. And yeah, it was just a really, really fun match. So make sure to check out Arrow over on the YouTube channel, on his YouTube channel. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this Skaven vs. Vampire Coast showdown. And aside from that, guys, we'll see you on the other side. Take care.